Rose, you've invited us into your sanctuary, your home.
Welcome.
You're on the throne here.
I know, right? My lazy boy.
What's Rose at home like?
Ooh, what's Rose at home like? Sometimes I become a busybody. As of lately, getting closer to my fight, I try to, just relax as much as possible. Sit on my lazy boy. Just hang out with Pat and, my family, friends, my animals, even though right now, a little unique situation. My mom has my dog a little bit early, so I can just focus, on the task at hand. But it's a lot of just training and relaxing.
How do you come down from like a hard day of sparring or a big day of practice?
Well, it depends on how it went. If everything went good, sometimes if it's like a really good sparring session, we sit around talking about it for hours. Oh man, remember this happened, that happened. You know what I mean? Just like, just really, I guess, celebrating how, good I did. If it's a bad day, sometimes we'll talk through it. It's a lot of talking. And then usually if it's just a regular day of training and I've, really put in the effort, which, at this point in my career, I'm always putting in the effort and I just know how to do that. It's usually takes me about an hour after I eat and then talking a little bit, and then I'm just like, ooh, I need to take a nap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a good nap taker now. Usually in the past, as like, when I was a little more immature, I was just always doing stuff.
Right.
Now I understand the importance of naps, and it's just so good for my recovery. So that's usually, I try to wind down. I actually been doing this, I have a mental coach who like makes these like audio like meditation, kind of guided meditation things that I just like listen to help me wind down before my nap. And so that's been really cool for this training camp. So that's kind of the typical day.
How long have you been working with a mental coach?
So I've had ever since I lost the belt, like originally, like it was kind of interesting. I went after I had lost the belt to Andras. I went through my old like Instagram messages where like that one folder where you like let me see who messaged me that I didn't get to see or whatever. And then there was somebody that just offered his name's Joshua. He has a company called Fight Mindset, and he offered his services, and I tried them out, and it was really useful and helpful. And it kind of got me back on, it built my confidence back up to, kind of that journey back to the belt. And then, I think he had some like health issues and stuff and some personal things going on. So I haven't been working with him for this camp, but I found someone else who used to work with like George St. Pierre, Cowboy, a lot of other fighters, even like somebody, I think he even worked with Rich Franklin at some point.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, throwback. But yeah, so as far as I know. Well, anyway, so I've been working with him for this training camp. He's, a new addition to the team, so it's been really good.
For you, what are the benefits of working with someone like that?
I think it's just mainly for me, a lot of the times, well, for this particular guy, his name is Brian Kane. I think he helped me kind of rein in my morning routines and like my structure, my organizational skills. Just more of my like kind of getting my outside life a little bit more under control and like, adulting more. So that like little tips and tricks. And whereas I think, the other guy, he was good at like helping me take my visualization to the next level and really just getting more mental reps in with that. But I'm doing all of that stuff, even, and a lot of it is more so on my own too. Like I do a lot of mental stuff for my own, or on my own. And then, what else was I gonna say? Gosh. Well, I think it's mainly just to like talk to somebody that's outside of you know, my close circle, because obviously Pat is my biggest mental coach. Like
Yeah.
he's there 100% of the time. He's going with me through it all, and he's been there, done that. But sometimes you need like an unbiased, you know, person to talk to, just to, um, you know, kind of bounce off ideas and sort of like, you know, when you think you're crazy and you think you're like, I think
Yep.
this is just bothering me, and then you just sometimes I just gotta say what I'm thinking, and then it's not so bad, you know. But if I just keep it internal, and I'm like thinking about something, or I'm like worried about something, and I don't tell somebody it, then I just feel like I'm lying to myself, or I'm
Right.
lying to everybody else. So it's mainly just a conversation is usually what I need.
I love how outspoken you are about this because people obviously love your fighting style. I mean, you're one of the most exciting fighters that's ever graced the octagon, but they also love the mental side of it. I mean, it's so famous now how you're telling yourself you're the best before you fought in there. I mean, there were viral videos of people around the world in different sports and different ages of them
Yeah.
doing that as well. But you mentioned something, Rose, that I did want to see the journey about was when you did sort of contemplate retirement. And you said in Brazil, like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
How did you make the pivot? Like, how did you recognize I still do and I need to go down a better path?
Well, I think a big part of it was figuring out the root of the problems and getting back in touch with my roots. I think uh, figuring out what actually happened, how did I lose my motivation, and then finding a new motivation, finding out. Really, like this is not a sport to just be doing it just because you can. You know, you really got to know why it is that you're doing what you're doing. If it's just to, I mean, if you're just like a really competitive person and you just want to win, then cool, great, you know, then that's what you want to do. But I think eventually that fuel kind of runs out and you need something else that drives you. And for me, I discovered that, you know, obviously everybody's, you know, most fighters are fighting for their family, or they're fighting to, you know, prove something to themselves or overcome something from the past. And I mean, it's a little bit of combination of everything, but I still have, there's many different reasons. You have your main reasons, and then you have like kind of your sub reasons and
Yeah.
other benefits that you enjoy about this lifestyle. But I think it's really just knowing why it is that I wanted to fight, and then coming up with a strategy how to get back, you know, back on track. And really a big thing that like two major events in my life that kind of led me back to getting on the path was getting back in touch with my old jiu-jitsu coach, my old grappling coach, Greg Nelson. That was like a huge thing. And then also going back to Lithuania and seeing my family there, because it was, I think it had been like 6 years since I went back. And I would always say, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna go back. But then fighting, you know,
Yeah.
kind of you know, you shift around your priorities, and it's like, you know, you got to get your personal life in order to, you know, take care of business.
Do you look back at the person then who was maybe sitting on the press conference podium? Do you look back and say, like, I totally can relate and I understand what she was going through, or is that like a stranger to you?
Yeah, I see just a young version of myself trying to figure things out, you know, like someone super talented, but just not really knowing what they're doing. Sort of just kind of like, I know some things, you know, and I know like how to fight, but do I know how to be a fighter, you know? And that's how do I know how to be the champion? I know I am the champ. I know I'm supposed to be sitting here because I'm sitting here and I got the belt, but it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? You know, and so now I definitely have a way better idea of that. So that's really cool. And it's just, yeah, it's knowing what it is that I'm doing, and knowing what it is that how to make my lifestyle work for me, you
Yeah.
know, as opposed to me just working for this lifestyle. You know, like I kind of my thought process of like the belt kind of changed a little bit when I got it. I felt like I was just like, I felt like it was more, I thought I would have more freedoms and more like, cause it's like, oh yeah, I'm the champ, I get to do whatever I want. But then it's like, I actually felt like I had more responsibilities and more obligations and more, like I had less time to do things. And then so I started becoming bitter about it, and was like, just didn't, I was like, man, screw this. I had way more fun as not the champ, you know, like I could
Right.
just fight and then, like, and just kind of enjoy it. Whereas like now, I know how to use it to my benefit.
What do you think is for you now the thing that makes you happiest about being world champion, besides the obvious that you're the best in the
Yeah.
world?
Well, yeah, there's definitely lots of perks, right? I think it's man, that's a really good question. I think that well, being the best, you get the best of everything. So anything less than the best kind of sucks a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Um so it's also just knowing that I am just fulfilling my purpose, and this I know that this is what God where God wants me to be right now. So it's like um so I'm very just grateful and willing to embrace it and stuff like that, and I really enjoy um all of the, like, how I can inspire people and stuff like that. I know it sounds cliche, but it's like, man, like, people really do. I feel that people are really touched by my story and just the way that I kind of was able to get it back. And that's I get a do-over, man. Like
Yeah.
not a lot of people get do-overs in their life, like I feel as though I'm right in the same kind of, like, similar kind of spot in the game board when you're on a video game, and it's like, all right, I'm on the boss level now. So it's like, this is a big mountain to climb, and I'm just really excited for the challenge. And yeah, we'll see.
You mentioned that you were young when you had the Andrade fight, but you were so young when you fought in the finale of the Ultimate Fighter season 20.
Oh yeah.
22 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, what was Rose at 22 like?
Jeez. I think I had a decent amount of life experiences at that point, but not nearly it seems like I thought I was wise, but I was definitely still an emotional, like, just I didn't know so much. And I'm sure that, as I'm gonna keep getting wiser and wiser as I get older, but in comparison to now, it's like I was for sure uh didn't know how to handle my emotions as well. And it's so, it's good to be emotional and stuff, like, to process your emotions and be honest about them, but, like, it didn't have much self-control.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that impacted the way you competed?
For sure. Yeah, because I think fighting is all about controlling yourself. You have your opponent, and the whole point is to dominate your opponent and blah blah blah, but in order to do that, you have to control yourself first.
How do you look back then on that first fight with Carla at this point in your life?
How do I look back on it?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because for the longest time, that would probably be one of, other than like some of my other losses, I would watch that fight and be like cringing and for the longest time. That's one of my fights where I didn't really watch the most. And then as of recently, I had to watch it again, and I seen so much more of the positive things that I was doing in that fight. I was like, dang, I was like killing it at first, and then I just gassed out, and that's kind of how I process it, because there was a lot on my plate at the time. I put a lot on my plate, and I just kind of cracked under the pressure, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this home with me. And I knew in that, like, I knew in that moment that I just had a lot to learn, and I did, and it's really shaped that fight in particular. I mean, I did lose another time after that against Carolina, but I think that was a little more. That was just a little different. With Carla, I learned, I think, one of probably the most out of any of my fights.
Really?
Yeah.
What stands out to you the most about it?
I would say the ability to deal with all of the extra stuff that you, like, other responsibilities, being, in the spotlight, and still taking care of, like, the most important thing, which is training, like prioritizing your training above everything else. But then knowing that those other things are still important, so you got to find, just got to prioritize things.
Yeah. When I talked to you after your last fight, you had mentioned Carla and said, I think she'd be a worthy opponent.
Yes.
Were you looking at that because she had been on a win streak, or were you looking at it, hey, this is my chance at revenge, and you do very well in rematches? Or was it something totally different, or a combination of things?
No, I think it's all, I mean, yeah, it's a little extra incentive for me to get that one back for sure. But ultimately, it really boils down to the fact that she's on an impressive win streak and she's very consistent. And I know that she's got a lot of heart, and she's just been kind of floating, you know, in the top 5, top 10. So yeah, that's if she wasn't winning, I wouldn't really care to rematch her.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes total
Yeah.
sense. On the card with you, on May 7th in Phoenix, Arizona, is your teammate Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
And it seems like whenever we see footage of you guys together, we see you two in person, like you both genuinely enjoy being in one another's company.
Yeah.
Does it make things easier when you have teammates? You've competed on cards with Kamaru before, and Justin, I mean, what's it like for you, and how does it alleviate things?
Yeah. Well, Gaethje has always been a huge inspiration for me as far as like just the way he kind of his mental approach is towards life, but in fighting, very different from mine in certain aspects. But ultimately, like, you know, I definitely draw inspiration from just how much he loves, you know, violence and chaos, and he just really lives to fight. So I that's a big plus. Also, I've known him for a really long time, and he's always been like kind of like an older brother to me, you know, like just very calming energy, and very like feel safe around that guy, you know.
Yeah.
And then Kamaru is very different energy from Gaethje as well, but he's also very inspiring too. Just his strong mentality, his stoicism and everything. But I think it's really cool as long as the last time was a little stressful, I would say. New York was a little stressful, but it was cool. I'm really glad that we did that and we overcame that because yeah, just watching Gaethje fight, it's like, oh my gosh, it's always so crazy.
Yes. Oh
It's
my
always so
God.
crazy. So I'm just really thankful that he's after me and not before me.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
You guys seem to have just such a unique mental approach to things. Like you just said, you know, you're inspired by them and they might have different mentalities on things, but it seems like you're all really dialed in, really positive about things. Is that something you work on as a team or in the gym, or is it just happens to be the connecting thread?
I would say it happens to me, the connecting thread, but I think the more that I work on being positive myself, ever since I think like throughout my lifetime, you know, ever since meeting Pat, Chico, Trevor, Greg, and then all of these really positive role male models in my life, I've learned to be more positive throughout my life. And then it really, I think ever since moving to Colorado, it really, you know, jumped up some notches. And Gaethje is one of those people as well. And I truly believe the more that I work on it myself, the more I attract other positive people that, not to say that we don't address, you know, negative issues in our life,
Sure.
but it's problem solving, right? It's not looking at the problem, it's looking at the solution. So, and that's what fighting is about. It's about problem solving.
When you find yourself having a bad day or maybe catastrophizing things or looking towards the negative, how do you pull yourself out? Because you really do inspire a lot of people, and people who maybe aren't into the sport still look to you to learn in that regard. So what would you say is your advice in those situations?
Well, you know, first and foremost is my connection to God. That's like 100%. Everything kind of falls into place after that. And then it's like, you know, talking, like just being honest as much as possible, like especially with the closest people around you, you got to be honest. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, but it's necessary. And so, you know, having Pat, Chico, Trevor, once again, back to the circle. And then family, friends, like leaning on those type of people, talking, you know, having honest conversations. And then I would say, yeah, I think that's the main thing is just having an open line of communication. And I think that's probably the hardest thing in life. Like I remember, you know, my coach, Tony, he would say, a lot of life is uncomfortable conversations. And it's so true, you know, but the more that you can do it, the better things will be.
No, that seems to be very accurate and good advice for him. You know, you said something to me today that kind of resonated where you were talking about like fighting kind of keeping you on a good track. And do you feel like Do you feel like your discipline here impacts like who you are outside of the octagon, where for a lot of people it might be the opposite?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, like do you feel like your fight life
Oh, okay.
impacts your personal life in a positive manner?
Yeah. In some aspects, yes. And then in other aspects, I think it creates an incentive for, me, my friends and family to be to have everything under control, and be on the same team. That definitely and we all know that it's for a period of time. Like this isn't forever, so it's
Right.
like, so it helps sometimes when, fun time is short. Certain times, we got to be disciplined and things like that. But I mean, it can spill over sometimes. It can be a little rough. You know what I mean? Like, so many things to do, and like you feel like you're always like, so you want to try to have that balance as much as possible. But it does create an incentive to try to just be better all the time.
What makes you happiest in life besides winning world titles and
Hmm.
being the best in the world? If you just had to simplify it, what makes you happiest?
Ooh, I would say what makes me happiest is like just the the moments. I don't know if that makes any sense. I was recently just watching Mike Tyson and Joe Rogan kind of well, there was that clip that went around. They were like talking about me, and then but I actually listened to the first part of the uh the podcast, and they were kind of talking about how it's like life, or you think it's like everything's about your accomplishments and this and that, and it is like obviously the pursuit of those accomplishments, but I think along the pursuit of accomplishing things, you realize that it's like the moments in between those that are, you're gonna remember forever, and just like funny conversations. And I wish I could remember more of them, but yeah, like just the memories and good feelings and relationships.
It will be a special moment for you in Phoenix on May 7th. So, what are you anticipating feeling like if you successfully defend your title against Carla?
How would I feel?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, so accomplished. No, I think it'll be I will definitely feel like a master. I feel as though I'm a master right now as I sit here, but I will truly, it's just like, the test, like you pass the test, so um yeah, just relief, like joy, everything. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think you do so well in rematches?
Well, I think it's because if I ever got, and maybe this is like, um, like sort of a negative memory from my past, but sort of maybe it's a good thing. But I would always get smacked upside my head if I ever made the same mistake twice. So I think it's always just like maybe that was a good thing that happened, because it always taught me like just like learn from your mistakes,
Yeah,
like because if it starts repeating, like okay, we need to address, like I always feel like there's something to learn from anything negative that happens. Not to say like sometimes this stuff happens to you and there's
sure.
certain things that are not within your control, but I think it's just I have a really good method of looking at my controllables and addressing those things. And then from there, I just know that as long as I control what I can control, I'm going to be happy. So I think that having that approach, and then also just realizing like I learned something from each opponent, like something about them that I have like my assumptions about, certain people. Then after fighting them, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a little different. Like they always kind of have some sort of surprise for me. So I learned from that, and it's really taught me a lot about people. Like just, you never know.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Just a couple more, Rose, before I let you go. But your division is one of the best in the UFC, not just in the women's divisions, but in the entire organization.
Mhm.
When you sort of look at what has been accomplished at 115 and the athletes that you have faced and that are competing there, I mean, what sense of pride and what really do you take when you look at that whole roster of the division?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty amazing. It's surreal to me that I'm like, man, I'm like, every time I watch the strawweights fight, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I'm like, and I'm better than them? That's crazy.
Yes, you
You know
are.
what I mean? So it's like, it's really cool. It's, I definitely pat myself on the back, you know, like, hey man, you're doing really good. And you're the best for a reason. Like, I use my mind. Not just like my physical talents, but this is what I'm born to do. So, yeah, I think every time I see, like I said, every time I see the other strawweights fight, I'm inspired, and it just like motivates me more to just keep getting better and better.
Absolutely, and you motivate so many. And I mean, the fact that Mike Tyson
Yeah.
singing your praises, how cool does that feel? It's Mike Tyson.
I know, that is super cool. It's really surreal. Like, wow. Every day I'm just like, you know, I wake up and I'm like, this is my life. This is crazy. But yeah, and you know, he's one of the best, you know, as far
Yeah.
as like just truest sense of a fighter and everything in life and in fighting. So yeah, what more could I say?
In your life, you've done so much. I mean, you've been in Vogue. I mean, have done these huge things. I saw Lil Wayne tweeted that he wanted to write a song about you at one point. Is
Yeah.
there any one thing that you're like, that's like the coolest thing I can think of?
Definitely Mike Tyson tops, I think, for sure. At least that's the most recent in my mind.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure after this fight, you'll have plenty more. I'm sure there'll be tons of people who want to get to know you, and we're just so lucky that you opened your home to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rose. You're the best.
I'm the best.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.